bonus session with some reader will give us a bit of a perspective from a TA perspective. After these 4 presentations that are run in the plenary session, you will all be randomly assigned to breakout rooms where you will engaging in 3 different activities relating to the themes discussed in the plenary. So I hope you will have fun with that, and we will explain later in more details how these activities and these breakout rooms work. And then we will reconvene in a plenary, in the last plenary session to discuss how things went. So this is the outline. You'll see we have around a couple of hours, and we have a short presentation, and the core, of course, is the activities in the breakout room, which takes a bit more time. Before starting, some housekeeping rules that you are certainly all familiar with in this time. So the session is recorded. Please mute yourself, use the chat to communicate. One of us, host, will take care of filtering questions to presenters. So just in the overall chat and do not try to contact the presenters, so not to distract them. Of course, you are welcome to turn on your webcam so that we can see each other's faces. It's nicer. So the results of the survey, so we ran this online survey among people that registered for the conference in July 2020. 130 people answered the survey. And the survey was designed to elicit your personal experiences with online teaching, in particular the technologies that you used during these challenging times, the pedagogical changes or the innovations that you decided or you have to adopt. And then the personal feelings towards this big move to online. Just for graphs to give you an idea of the background of the respondents, so 20% came teach in Germany or in the UK, then 5% from France, 10% from Italy, and then about 35% from other countries, smaller countries. As you see, the subject taught are kind of evenly distributed among macro, microeconometrics, econometrics, and field courses. Here, of course, people were allowed to give multiple answers, so I try to reclassify things. But as you see, the distribution across subjects is very even. In terms of academic position, the large majority of respondents are in a traditional teaching and research track. And then there are a few people that are only in a teaching track, research track, and about 30% of respondents are PhD students. And in terms of level taught, so about 80% of respondents taught are teaching an undergraduate course, and then fewer share are teaching master or PhD courses. Of course, here also people were allowed to give multiple answers, so that's why that doesn't 100. About 30% of respondents reported that they had still no experience with online teaching, so I guess that they are interested in this session and participated to the survey because they foresee that they will have to do it here or in the future. And then there was a bulk of question focusing on how teaching changed because of the move to online. So about 20% of respondents reported that they didn't implement innovation even when moving to online teaching. Another 20% reported that the innovations were mainly related just to technology, so to the use of different instruments. And I think that the good news is that more than 50% of respondents reported that they changed the content or the design of the course in order to make it more in order to adapt it to the new online environment. Then you were given the opportunity to select a few categories of changes. Again, The distribution is pretty even. So 40% of you say that they had to replace live teaching with pre-recorded material. Another 50% reported that they have to shorten the length of live teaching sessions. More than 30% said that they introduced some content related to COVID-19. That's pretty interesting. And then they stressed the importance of interdisciplinary research in this particular context. Again, there is still some 20% that reported that they introduced no changes. In terms of the technology used, the survey contained a very long list of different softwares, but I mean, the distribution of responses were very skewed. So most people selected just very few tools that they reported they were using. Of course, Zoom it takes the live. Everybody is using it. Then we have Microsoft Teams, so all these kind of software that have to do with web conference and lecturing. Then a big share reported to use Blackboard. And then many people said that they were using like polling softwares like Poll Everywhere, Mentimeter, and then about 20% tools for online marking. And finally, the feelings. So there was a final question asking the feelings about this adaptation towards online or blended teaching. Well, 20% said that it was a frustrating experience and they hope to get back to normal soon. But the very large majority of respondents see this as an opportunity to introduce some pedagogical or content innovation. So again, I think that's very good. Apparently, the profession is trying to seize the opportunities even from these difficult and challenging situations. So I'm done with it. So I'm very glad to leave the floor to the next presenter, which will be, let me go back. So there will be Alvin and Christian that will talk about engaging students and creating student communities. So I think Alvin can start sharing.
Okay, thank you, Marco. So welcome everybody. My name's Alvin Birdie. Christian.
Yeah, my name is Christian Spearman. I'm a reader in economics education at Bristol University in the UK. I've been involved with the economics network for quite a while, and I'm the training lead there. That's how I come in here.
Right, so first of all, actually, let me just apologize. There's kind of that intermittent beeping that's just happened. So every time someone comes into the meeting, that happens, and it kind of ducks the audio, but we can't do anything about that. It's this Zoom session appears to be set up. So apologies for that. So yeah, so we're going to, as you can see, hopefully you can see my screen now. Yeah, okay. And we're going to be talking about engaging students in creating online communities in the vast amount of space that we've got, which is 10 minutes. So that's a very, very big topic. What we've chosen to do is to concentrate this topic on interaction, on student-to-student interaction, because in the end, we felt that engaging students and creating online communities was really about encouraging student interaction. And so, you know, that's the key to getting communities working online. Perhaps just start by saying that in some ways, the issues of student-to-student interaction and vibrant student groups working in the educational space is actually, in many ways, not that different to the issues that we had trying to get that kind of interaction working in face-to-face settings. But there are certainly different things to watch out for in the online space. And so that's kind of what we're going to touch on in the next few minutes. For the moment, though, in order to try and get some interaction going between ourselves here in this meeting, can I just ask everyone to start enlivening the chat by telling us who you are, where you're from, perhaps, even something about yourself in terms of your experience of online teaching. So we'll just give you a moment to do that.
So the chat window is on the, for most people, maybe on the right-hand side, and you can open the chat at the bottom of the Zoom window. So the task is just quickly say where you're from or where you're currently based. And there we have Ralph from Manchester. Per Crusell is here. Excellent.
Welcome, Ralph.
Nottingham, okay. So we said before no one from the UK would come because it's so early, but we were wrong. That's that's good.
It's a beautiful day here, so I guess that's woken people up.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah, we have someone from UCLA. That's fantastic. Germany, Poland, Italy. That's great. That's a very exciting kind of group from people. Yeah, all over the world. That's very exciting, and possibly something which we wouldn't have in exactly the same way if we had a live session. So there is also an opportunity to online instruction, online teaching, and that's something to keep in mind. Really, the aim why we did that was just to make sure that you find the chat window. And as you have found the chat window now, we want to really go to our first proper task for you. And we would like you to quickly think and then share your thoughts of the question which is currently on the slide. So how do you think can we design student-to-student interaction in an online world? So also maybe you want to think about what is the role of the teacher in facilitating that. So we are in the online world now. How can we facilitate student interaction? If you could just continue using the chat and just share some of your ideas. We'll give you a bit of time here. You can also reply to another person's post. Yeah. Breakout rooms.
Pairwise task allocation. Okay, so make me talk to each other about it's gone off the screen, but I think it said kind of private. Private.
Yeah, I made a note. Private life. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Online experiments. You set up a mentoring
yeah,
to keep them engaged with their studies. So it's lots of great ideas here. Discussion forum is coming up a number of times, so group forums. And I guess even with group forums, there's the issue of how to make them work and make them vibrant and get that integration and conversations and dialogue going is the point, I guess. Group forums didn't work for me, and I guess that's the point, right, Christian? So it's easy to set these up from a technological point of view.
That's right, but then the question is, how do we get these things going? I think also in pre-COVID time, we had the question, how do we get a discussion forum going as well? And we know scenarios where students didn't really engage with that, and that's really where the role of the teacher and as a facilitator comes in, and that's kind of something we wanted to focus on in our session today. Alvin, you have a little model or some further thoughts here?
Yeah, so I thought just put some kind of flesh on this. This is from Gilly Salmon's work right back in the early 2000s. I mean, this is from 2004. I mean, that's not long after the dot-com bubble. And so these are the really, really early days, I suppose, of online teaching. Well, way before COVID. So, but even back then, I won't spend too much time on this, and you can look up the reference if you're interested. But what she stresses, and I think what a lot of us, in terms of the experience of the last few months, have come to realize, is that setting up these kinds of communities online and getting interaction going is a much more kind of deliberative and sort of designed, almost contrived kind of activity. And in terms of the question we just asked you, it involves so much more input from the facilitator or the teacher. So in Julie Salmon's model here, she has this kind of ladder, which is the sort of ladder to success for these kinds of online models. And she talks about initially providing the motivation and access so that people know where to go, how to use the tool, why we're doing this task. But then stages 2 and 3 are the ones I want to concentrate on here, really, because she talks about the fact that in these kinds of settings, which can be slightly odd, especially because a lot of students may be using these arenas, these online arenas, for social interaction rather than academic interaction, there's a process of active socialization that needs to go on, which is stage 2 here by the facilitator. So this is where you might actually, as a moderator, host a group session and be part of it and almost lead it to sort of almost kind of model the way that interaction works in these spaces. And then the facilitator then slowly takes a step back. So in stage 3 here, it may be that the moderator is still an important part of that group, but is often just offering sparks of inspiration or just keeping the conversation going, and then steps back in stages 4 and 5 here. This is, I mean, so those of you who are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy will see something of that in this model here. So anyway, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. So I'll leave it there, and you can follow that up if you're interested. So let me just move on then to this slide, and Christian.
Yeah. So as what the model here also suggests, and what also comes out in the chat window, is that there are certain things which are just really important when we try to get students going online, and when they have to interact. And one of the kind of insights, I guess, is that we do have to spend much more time thinking about the interaction and designing the interaction. So in the past, if we would just say like, oh, well, get going and think about this question, turn to your neighbor, even that was sometimes hard in the physical spaces, but in the online space, this might be even harder. So really thinking about how to design the student interaction and how the facilitator can support this is very important. I really like from what came out from the chat some suggestions about the online socialization. So feeling comfortable in a physical room as well, but even more in an online room where we can kind of see certain body cues, where it's much harder to smile at a person to kind of signal, oh yeah, why don't we start talking to each other, is really, really important. So I saw Clodagh put something in the chat that UCL has a virtual common room where students could meet. Some people suggest that we can use one-to-one talks to replace the kind of corridor talks, like have some meetings which we can set up. And I think that all helps us to feel comfortable. And very often I think we think about the subject, the topic which we should cover, but to actually engage students and enable them to engage with each other, we sometimes need to do things which have nothing to do with the actual topic, which have nothing to do with economics. And spending more time on that and designing these kind of interactions or tasks is something which I think we need to plan much more in the teaching to come. That was also the reason why we asked you, where are you from? Where are you dialing in this morning? And just get the conversation conversation going. Also, you might have noticed things take incredibly long, right? Like, so we spend much more time to have if we try to create a chat conversation than if we have a quick conversation with a small group of students in a room, or even in a large group of students. We could just ask one person quickly about her his ideas. In the online world, that's tricky. So we all know the feeling of, oh, there's so much I want to put into my lecture, into my teaching. So here we're really asked to think about, okay, what can we take out of our synchronous sessions and deliver in different ways to create space for these kind of other interactions.
And so, so we're coming to the end of our time. So I'll just add to that, Christian, and say one of the other things that Christian and I do a lot of online teaching together, and we've often found, and this might work with TAs, for example, and Sanpreet may have something to say about this later on, but actually modeling dialogue in online spaces. So having a tutor there or two people on the call at the same time can actually help in sort of showing the importance of that kind of dialogue. The other thing to say here is that if you're doing asynchronous teaching, of course people have a lot more time to make considered remarks, whereas in a synchronous session they're doing it sort of on the hoof, and so you just have to kind of give people time to be able to type. It takes a lot longer to type than it does obviously to say something. So let's just finish then by just introducing in the last minute here what we're going to ask you to do. This has been a really sort of quick discussion, and so we've just concentrated on this issue of getting interaction and the sort of deliberative aspect of that, and how a teacher might think about facilitating and getting that kind of online interaction going in spaces which might not normally be academic interaction spaces. So what we're going to ask you to do, we've got a task for you. Some of you will be in this task, and you'll be randomly assigned. It's a project that Christian and I have run in one of the courses we've taught for the last two or 3 years. And it's a survey on climate change, which actually comes from the Doing Economics Core project, a survey in Germany of climate change attitudes. And we asked students using Excel to analyze this using the techniques we've taught them, and then to make a video in a group. And that's worked rather well in a kind of group session where they can meet up, and we think about giving them roles, and we sort of get the groups going and so on. So what we're going to ask you to do, using a piece of software that you may or may not have come across before called Mural, is to convert this into an online project, and Christian and I will sort of move between the groups and sort of help us all think about how we can use the experience of the last few months to create a viable group project in this area. So I will stop there because I'm conscious of time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Find the stop share. Here we go. Okay, and I pass on now to who is it?
Pedro.
Pedro.
It's Pedro.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you all for attending this session. My part of the session will be a little bit less engaging, hopefully not, but it'll be a little bit of my personal experience and talking to some of you actually of what you're doing in your online teaching. So I will give you a few tips, a few advice from my experience, and I'll make this brief. I put a lot of comments there. The slides are available on my Twitter if anybody wants to take a look. I posted them this morning, so we can continue the discussion. And of course, later in the sharing group, those of you who are randomly assigned into my chat rooms, we will have an exercise there in which we can continue the discussion. But let me go into the very few messages that I want to send. So the first one, it's obvious. Probably it's we didn't do the best work, but we should have tried to make your life easy to get into this session, and it should be the same for your students. Everything you can do to make the life of your students easier is very, very welcome. The very first comment that I have is that, you know, you need to be much more organized than in the offline world. Students need guidance. Students need to know what they are going to be doing, and it helps a lot to have a plan in which posted in your webpage or whatever, where all the activities that they will be doing each day are planned by the minute with no surprises, such as they really have a they really feel that there is control here. They know what's going on, right? So make things available in syllabus. Try to have a digital home base in which everything, all the material for the course is posted, and the sooner all these things are posted, the better. Try not to use multiple platforms. We are not following that advice very much here today, but in general, you know, try to use the one that your university, try to adapt to the one your university is using, such as the students don't feel like, for this course, I need this platform, for this other, I need another one. Try to adapt, if you can, to one platform that the students can use, and make, you know, as Alvin and Christine were saying, the more interactivity you can have, the better. So allow chats and emails while they watch the videos. This is something that I was doing. You know, sometimes during my classes, I tell them to watch some video that I pre-recorded, but I am still there. You know, I'm still on the session, and I'm still answering chat comments and everything, such as they feel this is not okay. This is the time where we have to watch this 10-minute video and nobody's watching. So no, try to keep them engaged by knowing, by them knowing that you are there, and that you continue answering questions on the chat, right? Communicate frequently. One thing that helps me a lot is to have a document after each class in which I select the questions that I received via email or by the chat that were most useful, and I create a document for everybody, a PDF document that I share with all the students after each class, you know, with the main things that have been discussed. Those things are very, very useful. Plan your classes. Probably it's too late to tell you this by now. We have the courses starting soon, but you know, try to have an idea of what you're going to do. So it's very important to show your face. Even if we are shy, students want to see us. And keep your video short. You cannot give a 1.5 hour lecture, you know, just talking to the camera. Keep video short. And have everything you can documented in a PDF, such as they can access to it later, right? So test the availability of your online material in different platforms. You never know from where they are connecting. So the more you can see that your material is available in their laptops, but also on mobile phones, in different platforms, etc. If you don't have time, I mean, you probably will not have time to invent the wheel, right? So use existing resources. There are many, there's surprising many resources available, and people are really generous sharing these things. So there are many of these things that you can use, but there are videos that are already recorded, etc. But make them your own. If those videos exist, you know, have a short introduction, have a way to make students feel that they are part of the course. Don't just say, oh, watch these 10 videos and that's the course. No. Those 10 videos, of course, first acknowledge that somebody else may have done them, but then introduce them how they are useful for your course. Try to give them some context, such as they feel engaging and they feel they are reasonable expectations. So I think an introductory video to any course is really helpful, and try to nail that one, such as, you know, as go to the course with the right attitude. And in order to increase engagement, and sorry to Alvin, getting to your theme, I think one thing that helps a lot is to have many activities that are mandatory, even if the stakes are very low in terms of grading, but they feel they have to do those things, and that you're going to check whether they did it or not. Perhaps you're not going to grade them, but they know they have to do those things. That helps, you know, that helps people not, you know, planning, oh, I will do that, and then at the end they end up not doing it. The same with attendance. Try to use auto-checking. You cannot check that everybody attended this class or the other, but many of these softwares that we are using have an auto-checking feature that will help you a lot and tell students that you're checking attendance, right? Peer evaluation helps a lot for group activities. Claudia will be talking about that later. Having strict deadlines also stimulate feedback. So everything that they feel, okay, this is something that the professor really thought about, and they are checking things and they are keeping track of the activities. Variety. You know, classes cannot be just a video like this, some professor talking. It cannot be just, you know, online connection. There has to be a mix of activities, you know, so videos, there can be streaming, there can be group discussion, challenges, readings, quizzes, many of these things. And probably you have to think in advance which is the most engaging and which is the best way of presenting different content. One tip of advice that I have is that, you know, given that I'm teaching several courses at different levels, but some of the topics that I discuss in those different courses are different, you know, you can create content videos. You don't need to create the video for class number 2 of course, whatever on this topic. You know, if you're gonna talk about, I don't know, supply and demand, you can create the supply and demand video at the level in which, you know, you can use it in several other courses. So, you know, be efficient in creating new content. If you're gonna use it, try to use it such as you can later use it in other courses, right? And provide, you know, when you provide interactive activities, one thing that I noticed that helps a lot is to give feedback on what the others are doing. Students are very curious. They want to know whether they are weirdos and they are different than the others or not. So every time you can pop up, you know, some kind of quiz or everything in which they show it, show also the results. So they know, they know where they stand in the distribution of responses, and they want to know what the others are doing. Of course, keeping anonymity there. Online requires new skills, and this is something we are all learning in these days. You know, it's not the same to give a class in the lecture room that on camera, and there are things that you have we all have to learn, right? So one thing that helped me a lot is I took some courses on how to talk on the camera to try to be as natural as you can. And it's not you just talking to a screen, but people really feel you're talking to them. And in order to do that, notice that this is what I'm doing now. It helps a lot that you look straight into the eye. So you need to locate where the camera is, right? And talk directly into the camera, such as you are not looking at the screen and they look like, okay, there's a video there of somebody looking at a wall. No, you're looking at them and they see that. In order to exaggerate that, I would say the camera sucks up, you know, around 50% of your energy. So you need to be much more energetic when you are teaching a class. So otherwise, you know, I can feel some of you are stuck to falling down. No, you need to be energetic. You need to show that this that you are there, right? And in order to do that, one thing that helps a lot is to keep changing the tone. There should be tone shifts when you explain something, such as people wake up and they see, okay, this is important, this is not important. So also practice your voice. Sorry, the telephone is ringing in my room, so this is bad advice. Technology, I'm almost done. So technology, use it wisely. What I mean with that is, you know, don't overdo it in terms of buying new software, or perhaps your institution will provide you with new software, but, you know, having a good camera, a microphone, which is something I could not have today because of having microphone, having good lighting, it's important. I think Alvin's setup is wonderful. He turned off his camera, but setup, he looks like a radio host or something like that, right? So, you know, having a good microphone, a good camera, lights, and even makeup, you know, students are very, very curious and they want to know many things about yourself. So, you know, try to look nice and try to look good. Small tips, you know, don't use online connections. It helps much more if you have a wired internet connection, because these times sometimes fails. And, you know, if things fail, use a plan B, you know, just in case, have a plan B or even a plan C in case the technology fails. You know, that's how it helps to have everything documented in PDFs or something, you know, have plan, okay, if this technology is not working this day, what would I do? Have everything planned just in case. Small things like we did at the beginning of this session, ask the students to move the radio, and when online, you know, ask them to turn on their cameras. I think, you know, in order to keep things engaging and in order to feel like we are already, all of us, we are doing this together, it's important to see the faces. You know, I've been teaching classes with 100 students out there and I could not see their faces, and it didn't help me to be natural and to be engaging and to be informative. So all these things help. Anyways, I don't want to take too much time, so thanks a lot. You have my Twitter account there where I posted these slides, and in any case, we will make all the material from this session, we will make it available shortly, especially not only the material, but also the things that you work in the chat rooms. So we'll be talking soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pietro. Can you stop sharing and I'll share my screen?
I'm on it.
Thank you. I'm feeling quite a lot of pressure to look at my camera and be energetic now. Be aware it's an hour earlier in the UK. Okay, so the third topic we were going to talk about, and just to remind you what Marco said earlier, these topics came from the survey results. So we looked through the topics that people said they wanted to hear about. And quite a lot of people wanted to hear about online assessment, and in particular the move away from closed book exams. So I guess a lot of people in economics use closed book traditional exams either completely or part of their assessment in their courses. So again, because we're time limited, I'm not going to be able to explain everything about assessment to you. We do have an activity for you to work on in the breakout room. But I think this emoji, which I have to say my teenagers are absolutely appalled at me using, is reflecting the fact that certainly in my university, and I'm sure it's not unique, people were absolutely petrified at the idea of doing something other than closed book exams. And this comes from the fact that they're just not familiar with other options. Right from the fact that they've done closed book exams in school, they've done closed book exams in university the whole way through, and it's what they're used to. And I think we're in the Economics Network, we're running a symposium on assessment in September, and we've done a survey of students. And in that, we've asked students, if you had a choice, what would you like assessment to look like going forward? And I was absolutely shocked at the number of economics students in the UK who want to go back to closed book exams. And I think it's because it's what they're used to. So I think this is new and challenging for everyone. But I think it's important to emphasize that I think the future will be more non-closed book exams, both for sort of pandemic reasons, but also people made changes in the emergency that they realized actually there might be something in this, that we may be able to do more with different types of assessments. And there's lots of assessments that we've seen in economics for quite some time, but probably done by a small percentage of the people teaching economics. So you can see here the range that people said that they've used in various surveys, but also it's important to emphasize that most of these assessments, which are not closed book exams, happen throughout the year. So they tend to be cumulative things that you work on through a semester or through a term, rather than just being a May exam or a summer exam or a January exam. So they do tend to be ongoing activities. And I think Christian and Alvin's points about keeping students engaged and Pietro's point about online learning needing to be planned, having assessment during the semester can really help with that. So the students can sort of say, well, I'll come back to this the night before the exam. It has to be something that they're working on all the time. So when you're online for teaching, one of the complementary things that you can do is to have assessment in parallel that is really just there as quite a strong incentive mechanism for the students. We know that a lot of them, not all of them, will want to engage as they're going along, but for those who need a deadline, having assessment during the term can really help. So just to reassure those who are afraid or question the value of these different types of assessments, I mean, the literature in economics, but generally in economics, is very strong that this is a good way to test student knowledge and to test student skills. From a sort of diversity perspective, having mixes of assessments is really important because different learners respond to different assessments in different ways. So I do a lot of essay-based assessments and project assessments and in an optional course, and I know the students who choose it are the ones who aren't very strong in closed book exams. So it gives them an opportunity to develop their skills and to do what they can do, but through a different mechanism. It's also, and for those who don't know me, I'm a bit of an employability obsessive. Closed book exams are not good at developing skills or testing skills. So when I talk to employers and say talk to them about an econometrics exam, they're all like, you know, I've just done a big interview with the ECB, various policy people in the UK, and they all emphasize the fact that once you start working, the way that you do data analysis and econometric analysis is you sit down with your peers and you work out things together. You don't prove a theorem. And that's what we should be helping our students develop, so when they graduate, they have those skills. Obviously, alongside skills, you get higher order of learning, deeper learning coming through. I guess to put it simply, students can't just learn things off and remember them for the exam and then forget them. From a teacher perspective, I think you'll find you can do far more interesting things if you do different types of assessment. Certainly more applied things, maybe things closer to your research. So it becomes easier to mark the assessments. They can be actually really very interesting, but also to work with the students on the assessments makes you remember why you're sort of passionate about the subject that you're teaching. It goes hand in hand with what everything Pietro was talking about best practice online teaching. You have to be organized, you have to be well planned, you have to be engaging, you have to demonstrate to students what you're looking for in those assessments. So I think once you've designed an assessment or you've thought about an assessment that isn't a closed book exam, it really encourages you to relook at the whole syllabus that you have, and not so much the content, but more about how you teach. So I think, you know, starting with the assessment as a way to think about how you're going to design your online course is not a bad idea. And the final thing, and I think this is really important, is closed book exams don't excite people and they don't get them interested in the idea of becoming economic researchers. So when I was an undergraduate in Trinity in Dublin, we always had 30% assessment that was non-exam and 70% assessment that was exam. Everything that I have behind me that I still have from Trinity is the non-exam assessments. So I still have my projects, I still have my essays, because they're the things that I remember and that I've carried with me. So if we really want to encourage students to become researchers and educators, then actually encouraging them to do some research is the way to do it. Closed book exams are not, they may give them the knowledge that they need, but they won't create the passion for it, I think. But I'm not going to pretend that there aren't downsides to this and there aren't costs to it. I think Pietro mentioned earlier that you have to go a bit slower when you're teaching online. That's also true with assessments. You probably have to give up some time somewhere else in your course to give some time for the assessment. You have to do a bit of hand holding through these assessments. They can be difficult to design if they're new to you. So there is some time and effort that you need to put into doing new assessments. But I'll talk in a minute about how you can get help with that. The other thing is that if you've got multiple assessments during the year, you do have multiple loads of marking to do. I certainly didn't find it the case that I just shifted my May marking to the autumn term. I just had more marking to do. So there's no doubt about that. There's an increased marking load and you're also doing it over time. And TAs are not often experienced at marking anything other than sort of quantitative closed book exams, so they need some training on this as well. Some people are concerned that you get more skewed mark distributions when you don't have closed book exams, or it's harder to differentiate students. Again, that comes back to design. You can design your marking criteria and you can design the assessment to get the mark distributions. I would say one thing that I would say is in open book assessments, certainly in projects, essays, it's quite hard to fail a student if they engage. So certainly that tail end of the distribution you might find is squeezed, but it's also very hard to get a top class result because actually doing really well in these types of assessments is difficult too. So my assessment distributions are skewed away from the failing rate, yes, but when I read what these students have produced, I have no concern with that because they've actually shown that they've learned quite a lot. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Some people come back and say, well, it's really important that students for the rest of their life remember the definition of diminishing marginal returns, or, you know, really just know the content. They know what a Bertrand outcome is, or, you know, how to prove an OLS estimator is unbiased. That may be true. I think that assessments away from closed book exams can still do that. If students are using something repeatedly, they will remember it. My experience, who I tend to teach final year students, is they don't remember the stuff they learned in first year when they had a closed book exam. They have forgotten how to profit maximize. They have forgotten what welfare is. So I'm not sure the closed book exam approach ensures that they remember content for long term anyway. And of course, the other big issue is cheating. So once you move people out of an invigilated room, how do you make sure that they don't collaborate? How do they make sure that, you know, one of your kids doesn't get you to sit down and do his work for him because you're an economics professor, or even buy an essay? There are definitely things you can do around the design, and there's lots of resources out there on it. But at some point, you probably have to accept that students will work with each other, and you have to design your assessment so that it becomes hard for other people to help a student. So for example, if you do something very specific in your module that isn't standard, then it's quite hard for an essay mill to produce an essay on it. And I can explain a little bit about that. So what I wanted to do was just talk you through the sort of main advice on when you put in the effort, how to make the most of the effort. And hopefully you've heard already that the two key things are design. So taking the time to really think about how you ask a question, how you design a project or an essay, and how you communicate with students about what's expected and how to work on it are really important. So every course has some learning outcomes. Ideally, your learning outcomes won't be a set of knowledge that they need to know. You'll have some skills in there, some other things that they want to develop. So you might want to relook at your learning outcomes. Normally people then jump to the, okay, what content am I going to teach in order to reach them, and stop. But actually there's a whole load of other things in your curriculum, in your syllabus, that are there to ensure that the students meet the learning outcomes. So you think about the teaching methods, which is what Pietro focused on. So for assessment, what you need to think about is, what's the best way to test if students are meeting these outcomes? And that's the summative assessment. So let me use a concrete example. I teach a course in regulation economics, and one of the learning outcomes is that students understand how mechanism design theory is used in practice by regulators to design regulatory mechanisms. Now, these are students who are a mix of second and third years. They don't have role level mechanism design understanding, but they do have to do a project on how regulation works in practice. So what they do is a big project in a group, so working together, thinking about how everything they're taught in the course is used in practice. It's difficult because the regulators don't transparently use this stuff. You have to go sort of digging around for it. But I decided that an exam question wasn't the best way to assess this, because you needed to spend a lot of time digging into how things work in practice. So you find the most appropriate way to assess them. Then you have to take a step back and think about, right, how do I make sure students do well in this assessment? And a lot of that's about communication. So the first time I did this project, I said, here you go, off you go, work in a group. And I realized very quickly that people don't know how to work in groups without getting some guidance on it. So I introduced, I didn't want to introduce structure. I didn't want to say sort of week one, you're the group leader, because that's not the real world either. But I communicated with them about how challenging group work is, how to incentivize each other, and also introduced peer evaluation. And the peer evaluation was not about the outputs they were producing, but about the input they were putting into it. So about their contribution to the group work. And that was just done through a simple Moodle quiz. And then they would get the feedback. So I wasn't using it, it was to each other. And they'd be able to see if there was, you know, their team players had a concern about them. But also I made sure in lectures and tutorials, there was time every session for the group to think about how what we were learning that week linked to their project. So all the time I was giving them opportunities to practice. It wasn't like you do your project over here and I teach you over here. Everything was mashed together. And that's what's really important, that you design the whole course starting from the assessment and working backwards. So I've got the arrows going this way, but actually working backwards, but also communicating with the students all the time. Don't assume that they can just run with it. And that's true of an essay, even an MCQ quiz. If it's online and they've never done it before, they're going to need a practice opportunity. They're going to need to understand what's involved. So I'm going to end very quickly by saying a little bit about the tasks that you'll be doing in the breakout rooms on assessment. So what I've got here is an old exam question from my competition economics course, which is a vertical integration question about the banana market. And the way it works is, okay, this was a closed book exam. They had to go in and do it. So the first two questions are kind of standard. What will the equilibrium wholesale price will be? What will the equilibrium retail price be? What would happen consumer surplus? And then the final question's more of a practical policy question about what steps would the competition authority need to follow to complete it. What you'll be asked to do in the breakout room is think about, if I couldn't have a closed book exam anymore, which is going to be the case in UCL this year, how would you change an assessment like this? So how would you assess the type of things I'm trying to assess in this question in a different way in an open book setting? When we explain the breakout rooms to you, you will have the question, you will have everything there, so you don't need to memorize what's here. I'll finish there and hand over to Sampreet. If anyone does have any questions, do feel free to email me or get in touch on Twitter. And as Pietro said, all the materials will be shared, and actually we're recording this session as well, and that will be shared as well. Thank you. Sampreet, over to you.
Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
Very
perfect.
good. Welcome everybody. I'm Sampreet Goraya. I'm a final year PhD student and teaching assistant at Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. So today I will be talking about two things. The first one is the overall view on the TA's role and responsibilities in an online teaching and how they are different from face-to-face teaching. And the second, a bit more stress on how we can facilitate discussions to enhance faster learning among students. So I have 5 to 10 minutes, it would rather be quick. So let's begin. So in an online teaching, TA can have many responsibilities, right? From grading assignments to moderating discussions and to making announcements. Remember, in online teaching, all of these things require you to have good skills of using digital tools. So make sure before the course starts, you are aware of all the main features of the digital tools or any third-party tool which the course or the university is using in the middle or in the beginning of the course. And it's very important. Second, not only the features which are relevant to you, but also the features that are relevant to students, because many students will have small technical issues in the beginning of the course, which you may want to clarify with the students, like rather than them going to some technical person who is responsible for this. And the second is that in the beginning of the course, a lot of students, they have a lot of difficulties like this technical issue, so they miss a lot of main stuff. So you want to pace initial classes while taking into consideration these margins, right? So the second point is that given that in an online course there is no face-to-face interaction, as already pointed by Pedro, Christian and Elvin, there is no room for uncertainty and unspecified tasks. So you should be absolutely clear about what your role is and what is expected out of you. So you need to have a conversation at the beginning of the course with the instructor. For example, you can ask questions on discussion. How frequently are you supposed to make comments in the discussion forum? Are you supposed to create new discussion points? Are you supposed to make new posts or not? Second could be on quizzes. Are you supposed to check quizzes or it is all automated? Next point could be on, for example, are you supposed to create groups or not? Another point could be on the Dropbox material. Are you supposed to, like grade the Dropbox items? Are you supposed to provide feedback on that, and how personalized that feedback should be, because it is different from what we have in the face-to-face. And the final would be on other issues, as I mentioned before, that third-party tools, and many of the times, like for example, if your university is holding quizzes on a third-party tool, then you should know how to use it and how to help students in case they have any issues with it. So let's dig into each of these points a bit more. For example, in case of announcements, in the syllabus section, outline how students can access you and in what time frame they can expect an answer from you, right? You can use the announcements to communicate with the whole class. Announcements may include, for example, weekly updates, upcoming due dates, or any change in the content, right? So you can use it to communicate with the whole class. The second responsibility which you may have is creating student groups, and particularly in economics where you have data projects, you may want to create student groups for TA session and also for these projects. Make sure they are not too big or too small. If they're too small, you will inhibit this within group learning, because this in face-to-face, it's much easier, but in online, creating this networks between students is difficult. So you need to optimize on the student group size as well. The third point which I have experienced is that there will be many students who will miss the assignments, or they will not be participating in any sort of discussion forums. So what you can do here is that you can reach out to these students personally. You can write encouraging emails to them, because many of the times, remember, now students are working from home, so there are like socio-economic problems they might face. There's some personal problems they might face, which is inhibiting their progress in the course. So any sort of encouragement, be kind, will help the students in faster learning. The fourth one, sorry, here is that the posting replies and the mode of discussion forum. So why it is helpful to create this culture of having students posting a lot on the discussion forum. First, you can communicate with the whole class. So if a student has a good question, then the whole class can learn from your answer. So you can foster this culture to enhance across student learning. The second, it will cut your email load a lot. That is one-to-one, and keep emails for more personal stuff, for assessment, for accommodations, etc. And as a PhD student, which most of the TAs are, you cannot afford to spend a lot of time every day on emails. So when you communicate, which like on a question to the whole class, which more or less will be common, you cut on a lot of emails. And fostering this culture will go a long way. You can do it in the beginning of the course, right? And the final part is on the reviewing discussions and providing feedback and submitting grades. Like there will be peak time, so you need to adjust your timeline accordingly. And on the feedback, again, as I said, because you really need to talk to the instructor, what he thinks about a good feedback. I will come back to this in 2 minutes. So this is about the overall role which is expected out of you, I think, and how you can handle it. So the next, I want to spend 2-3 minutes on how you can build communities within students and facilitate healthy discussions to enhance or promote faster learning among students. So research has demonstrated, at least in the pedagogical research, that discussions promote interactions among students, and they demonstrate social presence, which helps the faster learning by students. So first, on the discussion, suppose an online course has a discussion forum, your social presence is important, and you need to have these recursive cycles. It could be a 24 to like a 48-hour recursive cycle where you answer the most important questions, which are very common among the students on the discussion forum. And it is shown that active participation in discussion forum helps learners. However, it is important that how active are you? If like, again, as I mentioned here, being a facilitator is important than being a dictator. You cannot just bombard students with a lot of discussion points, and they are not able to discuss any of this point in length or are unable to understand from it. For example, here I mentioned Mazzolini and Madison study, where they find that higher frequency of instructor posting resulted to shorter dialogue and lower posting by students. So again, this is a crude measure of understanding how students are learning, for example, shorter dialogue and posting, but still it is informative about how fast the students are learning, how well they are equipped, how well they are adjusting to the course over time. So these things are important. So neither too low, neither too high. You need to have an optimal time frame and the optimal number of posts within this time frame, which will enhance faster learning. And the final point, the second last point, which I already highlighted a bit before, is on high quality feedback. So first of all, the high quality feedback is a very subjective term. It depends upon the course, and it depends, of course, on the instructor. So you really need to have a deep discussion with your instructor at the beginning of the course. What does he mean by a high quality feedback? Ask for example, like for sure he might be teaching this like for a long time. So he might have good examples to show you, look, this is for me is a good quality, high quality, very personalized, which I want you to do in this course. So again, your expectation, your beliefs there might be a mismatch. Like what you think is a high quality good feedback could be different from what your instructor thinks. So this, my experience is very helpful to clarify in the beginning what your instructor expect out of you. Basically, you are the teaching assistant, so this is also your responsibility. And the final is online office hours. What I have experienced is that in an online course where you don't have face-to-face interactions, there will be many students, and I will be one of them, where I would be shy enough to instruct you, to disrupt your lecture within the course. And also I would be shy to just post anything on a platform which can be seen by all my classmates. I don't want to do it. So online office hours are important for this personalized communication, which I believe is more important than in the face-to-face courses. And the last point which I want to make is what is very helpful is to refer student to additional material and additional support. For example, there will be a lot of heterogeneity within your groups. Suppose you're teaching a course on big data, like there will be students who will know like a lot of software, and there will be students who are a bit slower. So posting this additional material, this will help both of this. This will serve purpose to both of these groups. Like for example, if I'm teaching a course on big data, like referring to Raj Shetty's course on big data will help like people to like practice that, and it will foster this faster learning among students. And with that, I think I will end my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and we can discuss any questions you have on the chat forum. So if you have any questions and you want to personally email me, you can use this email address. And thank you very much, everyone. Back to Claudia.
Great. Thank you, Sampreet. So Marco, we need to introduce the groups. Clodagh, I think there's a slide, isn't there, somewhere?
Yep. So yeah, we are running a few minutes late, but I think we are fine with the schedule. Now, as we said at the beginning, you will be randomly assigned to different breakout rooms. A slide will arrive now. Okay, so if you are in room 126, you will do the activity about engaging students. If you are in room number 7 to 13, you will work on online teaching. And if you are in room 14 to 20, you will work on online assessment. So there are these links which you will need to access for doing the activity. The best thing is to copy all those 3 links, because you will only know which room you will be assigned to later on. So you will need all 3 links, and then depending on the room that you are assigned to, you will use the appropriate one. We as co-host will try to move across the different rooms in case you have issues. In the breakout rooms, there's an help button that you can use if you're lost, and then the host will be alerted and will come and rescue you. I think I've said everything. Clodagh or Albin, you want to?
Can I just add, if you are in groups 1 to 6, Mural may not be as familiar to people and may seem a bit disconcerting. Just go to the bottom right of your screen, and there's a map which allows you to zoom and move to the right, your right group. there are instructions in the mural, but just if you're lost, go to the bottom right.
One more thing, Claudia, they are asking on the chat whether we can copy the links. So perhaps it's copied above, but if we can copy them again, that'll be useful.
Yeah, okay, I'll put them. Sorry, I just need to stop sharing to be. Let me find the chat.
I don't know whether once you go into the groups, the main chat disappears. Is that right?
It does, yeah.
Oh,
sorry,
so,
I have posted them, but I haven't clicked
yeah,
enter.
just be aware that if you can, this is the time to try and grab those links and put them in a Word document or somewhere else, so that
or just open the 3 links on your browser. So this is one of the interesting things where if you're going to try and do anything like this in a classroom, students learning how to have Zoom open or whatever Teams or whatever you're using for teaching and the browser for another activity is one of the challenges. I can see numbers of people in the room are dropping off. So we were going to go for 4 or 5 in a room, but it may end up being 3 or 4 in a room, but I think that will still work okay.
Yeah,
we should probably say that the plan is that we won't be talking about the outputs that you produce very much in this session because of time, but our plan is that we share what you produce in the Padlets and the mural on the EEA website. So the breakout sessions aren't recorded, so say what you like to each other. That's all fine, but the actual output will be used. So you might just want to make sure you don't say anything rude about the speakers or anything like that in the outputs that you're producing. Yeah, and I think Marco already emphasized, we'll move between the rooms, so I'll move between 14 and 20 on the assessment to make sure you're okay. And you can also press the call for help button, which I think may take me in as the host. But if anyone has any questions, post them in the chat now. Otherwise, I shall create the breakout rooms.
We can just write on the chat how to save the chat. People are asking about that too, Flora.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So
copy paste.
You just go to the 3 little dots.
Yeah, there's 3 little dots.
Yeah.
And it just says save chat.
Yeah, 3 dots.
So now would be a good time to try out these reaction buttons and people let me know when they're ready to go. Okay, can I do a very quick change of how many rooms we're using? I know this is very annoying, but we have reduced the number of participants wanting to do this. So it will be room 1 to 5, 6 to 12, and 12 to 16. I'm just going to do 16 rooms, because otherwise you might just have 2 people in your room. So what I'll do is I'll copy this.
Okay.
This is online teaching at its best. If your students all decide to leave the room, you should chase them.
Yeah.
And so 1 to 5 is doing communities. 6 to 12 is doing online teaching, and 13 to 16 are doing online assessment. Same links. And create breakout rooms. I'm going to open all the rooms. Alvin, you're in a room on your own, so you can just leave that room, I think. Okay, enjoy.
So here are the real problems, ending up in a breakout room where nobody is in the end because everybody left. But there's no one in the conference room either. I'm alone in this world.
As a matter of fact, I just joined.
Sorry, I'm back in the main.
I'm also back.
I was put in a session where people didn't want to talk at all and unmuting themselves and put on the video, so it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to stay there after asking a couple of times for people to please unmute themselves at the very least. So
same here. I was also alone in my room. I mean, the only person.
No, there were two people, and one I think was not meant to be. One of the speakers was there probably just to monitor that the breakout room was being formed, but then the other person I was left with wasn't talking at all, not putting.
Okay, Simona, should we just pick one of the three and just go there and take another person? I mean, if anybody else wants to join.
That could work. I thought Claudia was also trying to maybe reassign us to rooms. I just talked to her, so.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out.
Trying to reassign us to rooms,
but it's not letting me.
Yeah, we can just have a chat here.
I was just about to suggest that if you wanted to, Sampreet and I and Marco can disappear into other rooms, and that might be the easiest thing to do. If you want to choose one of the topics between you.
I'm back.
Yeah.
You'll probably be the most engaged group because you actually worked out what to do.
That's selection.
I only attended the beginning of the session, and I had another meeting in between, so I didn't follow much. But I understand that there were 3 topics, and that we could pick one of these 3 to discuss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I ask what were the 3 topics? Because I might have missed them.
So one's engaging students, one's online teaching, and one's online assessment, and they each have a separate activity, which you'll find when you go through the links.
Okay.
And the links are in the chat, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, they're in the chat. Yeah, I was going to put them as they're there. So.
Oh, since I joined in later, yes, I don't have the links. I think I only have the latest message.
How about now? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Although the numbers of the rooms is not the same anymore, but
thank you
the
very
topics,
much.
The topics there are 3 different topics. Those links still hold.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So.
Do you have preferences? I don't. This is my first year as an assistant professor, so I haven't taught anything online. So I'm mostly lurking and learning.
Okay, so you pick. You want to pick then?
No, I said I have no experience with any of this.
I have difficulty in engaging students.
Okay, so the first one would be
the first one. So
you would like to look at that? Okay, sure. So shall we do that? Yep.
Yeah.
I just go into the link and see what that's all about. Mural. Okay. So we need to sign in, it seems. Okay. So we have to do what exactly? To engage in what?
Yeah, I forgot what was on the slide.
That's an issue, isn't it?
There should be some instructions about, I think you want us to work on a project.
Well, it just tells us add elements, sticky notes, whatever, but for what purpose? That is the question, right?
Right. We did have an exam. We did have a task, but it disappeared. It was on some slide earlier, no?
What was that about?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. I thought it was going to be available.
No, that was only for the last one, how to do an online assessment other than the closed book.
No. Everyone. There was,
there was a big slide with 3 tasks, but it was.
Okay, all right.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, but
I thought
in
we would.
here there
have
should be instructions in the mural.
in the mural. Okay.
Before you jump in, you'll never. Okay.
Okay, so there's something that calls the project is the data project on climate change,
Where is
and
it?
your task is this. But I've never used mural either.
Where is it? Navigate the mural.
If you
click on things in that big bar.
Doesn't
in
really
the
look
bottom
this
right. If you
bottom
look
right.
in the bottom right, so there's a plus and a minus. If you click on plus a bit, it'll the sort of
I see.
A sort of long rectangle. Sort of you zoom into it, and then you move. You'll see there's a little gray purple rectangle that you can move around to move to different parts in the document.
Oh boy, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Got it? That one.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even difficult to visualize. Oh, there we go. Gee.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So the project without a project climate change.
Can everyone see it now?
Yeah.
So I see a slide which is titled the project or group 4 work area on top.
I could share. We cannot share what we see, right?
No. So is it because I see group 3. Okay. So I see, there's like different groups. So group 6 work area, group 3, group whatever.
I see different possible topics here. Student planning sessions, discussions, student join Zoom. So is that what you are seeing, guys?
So my understanding was that, so we should have been assigned to one of the groups. And since we weren't assigned to one of the groups, maybe since there was only 5 groups that are going into this, maybe you could pick group 6 area to work on because no one was assigned to team 6.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we need to coordinate in which one of those we would like to select and work on. Is that what you're saying?
So group 6, let's do group 6 work area. I think that's what she's suggesting.
Which one is that?
There is a green
one. Yeah.
And it says group 6 work area.
Yeah.
I'm seeing something else.
There could be other people working on the other group areas in some of the breakout rooms. Because there was supposed to be 1 to 5 groups assigned to this task in the end. So
okay. I see completely different things. So
work area. How do I get to 6?
You just have to
scroll down for G. I mean, it's just
so I think
5.
it's
get in there.
Nice.
Okay, group 6.
Okay.
Oh boy. Okay. Get in there. Sorry. Okay. Project. The green one. All right. Okay. So we're still there. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so our task is kind of to organize the work for like design sort of the Okay, now I see. Okay.
So we can kind of move these post-its down in the weeks or something like this. We could like
or we can create new ones, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can double click anywhere to add a post-it note and use the blue dot to drag it to the right size. And then double click to add the text. So, okay.
So presumably we will need at the start something joint, right? Where everybody goes and where we explain everything and so on. So there needs to be some sort of either a video that we make or where we explain to the students what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the first one would, so I can start writing one where, so this is like sort of plenary or something like that, we can call it.
Or kickoff or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Kickoff meeting to discuss projects, groups, logistics. Okay.
So presumably this is something that you can do synchronous, because I mean, if this group is large, if these are 1,200 students, which I will have in winter term, then this would not be possible. You can't do synchronous, then you have to do a video. But here, okay, we can probably assume the nice situation where we only have 10.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, but I think that the actual stories that the students are in different parts of the world.
Right.
But actually, yeah. So we can be synchronous. You're right.
That's okay, right? We can just, I think your proposal was to, you can do a video, right, to sort of present what's the purpose of the project and so on, and put it online. So it'd be something pretty brief, just to get people to, to at least have, an introduction to what it is. I would have,
and then we can say something like video will be posted on on the discussion board or on the platform, and then there can be sort of Q&A for 24 hours or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, right? So there's a few things on my mind. So one is you want to make sure that students have seen the video, so that they don't end up put into a group where they just don't know anything and their classmates have to fill them in. I mean, maybe it's not the end of the world for just this, but then there's two other things I'm thinking we would need to do really early on. Is one, make sure that people have the technical skills in terms of Excel. So maybe linking to some past resources for Excel, and then creating the groups. Also, how are we going to create and assign people to groups? So I'm wondering whether, after you've seen the video, for example, sometimes in Canvas, you can do things like, you see a video and then you can click on next or something like that. And then you can fill a few questions. And then maybe we could, from there, assign people to groups, which would sort of, make it a little bit more, not, they could still click on next even if they hadn't seen the video, but at least it ensures that they've seen that there's a video. I
like the idea of having them directly after the video in groups, if that's possible. So, because if I see this video alone, then I feel alone and with all my questions and everything. But if there's already someone else to whom I'm assigned, even if that's kind of randomly, then we can kind of jointly think about what our problems are and so on. And I think that would be cool. But the problem is, of course, if people don't see the video at the same time, right? So how does that happen? If they some see the video earlier, some see it later, and how do we get people who then are at the same time communicating if they click?
Yeah, so I was thinking a little bit more along the lines of like saying, oh, my preference for availability and when I want my group to meet is on weekdays mornings or something like that, right? Where you have people sort of after the video input sort of something like that, or if people, I don't know if people have different strengths, or for example, some people say, I feel not as confident with the metrics or with Excel or something, to make sure that we do groups that are sort of balanced in terms of levels. And we can put people that have, different skill sets in each group so that each group can build. And then, you would have a deadline for submitting, for example, this little survey. And then after that's done, then you would assign people to groups and email, the groups. But it's not immediate, like you were interested in, Linda, and so.
I like this idea. And I think, yeah, like giving people a couple, you know, like 24, 48 hours maybe to like, to do that, and then assigning them to groups, and then kind of they're sort of on their own for a bit. Maybe that's kind of the end of week 1, or I don't know if we need to post more resources. I mean, of course, you know, post like the tasks and stuff, and then like week 2 they kind of work on their own, and week 3 is feedback or something like that. But I like this short survey idea.
Hi everyone. So if I can just step in there. So I think what is in the past when we did the project, we were all obviously in a physical room, and when we had the group, so students came in and they were immediately assigned to a group. They had to find their group mates and then get to know each other, talk about something. So I think this aspect of like making the group gel and kind of preparing them to work together will be something absolute important and much harder, I guess, in the online world.
Right, but as I see it, I think this will happen later, right? Because at the moment we're just trying to find out where the skills are, put them in groups, and then they're going to gel. So this is something you can still do individually, right? As I understood the survey, you can fill it out. It's hopefully easy enough to fill out the survey, and you can. However, there may of course be the problem that I'm not willing to trust and share my inability to do Excel or whatever in the survey. That may be a problem, of course. And that may be very different in a more personal space where there are 2 other people, which I first get to know, right? So then that would be a different approach where we first make groups and then these people do some sort of asking each other about the last weekend and what they did also. And then maybe I warm up and then I'm willing to admit that I actually can't do Excel because I don't know what this is.
We thought about a pre-task even. So why not doing maybe a pre-task where they would just do a little thing in Excel individually to just familiarize them and then ask them at the end, did you find that hard, okay, or really easy or something like that. So they don't really know that this is used to actually put them in groups, but it's maybe just a way for us to get a feeling like what their levels are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so as part of the short survey plus like pre-task.
Oh.
So are we supposed to be able to see as things get populated what these comments or sticky notes or whatever else are being added
in
this document? Because I'm not seeing anything.
So if you're on Mural, you want to scroll down to group 6 work area.
I am there, but I'm not seeing anything. That's what I'm saying.
Because I posted 4. So I posted 4 posts.
I can see them. Yeah.
Okay.
So
can
you see on it?
I can't see where. You're not hovering around the area. I can see other people like popping around. So maybe you need to scroll down a little further where there are the week 1, week 2.
I don't know. There's.
I see you now. Scroll a bit down a little more.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
Because I can see your mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So you're really going through. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can go in and edit what I wrote. Like I see already somebody.
I just destroyed your work because it's all twice in there now. Sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, so I think like like how do you
so are you familiar? So I have some input that may actually be useful for you generally. Are you familiar with these like 35 questions to fall in love story that Steve alerted me to? So this is like research from the late 90s or so where someone, a psychologist, tried to make people fall in love, but it's actually quite good stuff to get people close together. So there are like 35 questions. You can ask another person and you do that interchangeably with someone else. And they start easy out, but they kind of get more to like deeper things like what you really care about, something important you did in your life and so on, so that people slowly warm up. And maybe taking 2 or 3 of questions of this ilk could be quite useful in these groups. I don't know how they would work if there are multiple people, right? So, but for 2, it's a quite good way for 2 people to get to know each other by giving them a task like, I don't know, what is a famous person that you admire and why? And then they have time to think about this, and then they can talk about it, and that then slowly open up doing that.
Like a bonding exercise, I see.
Would that be like, would it work much worse if they were to post answers? I think like a small group, or like it's better if there's video.
I don't know. I just know it from real contexts, and there you kind of sit opposite to this person. You look at this person. You're quiet while the other person is explaining. You're actually supposed to not say anything really, except for and there it helps. So I don't know how it would work, and I don't know whether typing is a good thing because it seems like less personal to me. But I have no experience. I don't know. But maybe we don't have to completely invent it. Maybe we can just go with the suggestion and somebody will later think about the details of this. Otherwise we won't get to group 2, week 2, I mean.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I'm thinking, maybe we could do like bullet points, or, I don't know if there should be like a recommended number of meetings per week or something like that as a group. Or, one of the things I was thinking, linking to this, is if we say you should be meeting twice a week for the next 3 weeks, at least. And, first meeting, we recommend you do XXX, second meeting, XXX, and between meeting 1 and 2, you should, have looked at the data, thought about, what could be interesting, and then, meeting 2, so meeting 1 sort of trying to understand people, meeting 2 might be, trying to figure out what we're interested in, and so on.
I like the idea, but I would turn it around. I would first give them I would give them the task and then say these tasks will approximately take this, so you can expect, or it would be very useful if you, so that they can decide themselves how they do it, that you don't say like, you have to meet 2 weeks in these 2 weeks every week for 2 hours or so. You can say like, you can expect this to happen, and it would be good if you kind of agree to meet regularly. But it comes from the task, right? So if you can say like, you have to do this task takes approximately that much time. It needs to be done somewhere between Monday and Thursday, because I mean, they may be having their different ideas and times when they.
Can I ask you a stupid question? I mean, it seems like the way you're tackling this, you're assuming that they're working in groups, right? But in the description of the project, there's nothing that suggests any of that. So it looks to me like the project is for each of the students to come up with a video that would use certain techniques.
That's a
and
group
whether or
video,
not they're doing
actually.
Collaboratively or not, but it's not written anywhere in the instructions. So everyone seems to assume that, but it's not written anywhere. So that's already a bad start, right? To give instructions which could be interpreted otherwise.
Yeah, and we'll take that on as very good feedback from you.
Yeah, because there's nowhere, and even the size, if it's meant to be a group project, the first thing to think about, what kind of size do we want for them to suggest that they should form? Is it the maximum number of people that can work together? Is the minimum of 2, a maximum of 5? Is each group of 2, 3? What is it?
Yeah, so for the
purpose, it seems to be a fundamental problem, right?
For the purpose of today, you can assume it's a group project. They would maybe work in groups of 5 students together. Yeah. So I'll add that now.
The reason why I'm saying this is that when I thought about, when I was teaching a course and I was thinking about giving tasks, there were some tasks that were meant to be performed individually, other tasks that were meant to be worked as a group. But of course, if you do that online, asking people that are not, able to meet regularly, even only to discuss their own work and if they have to work in a group, I think a group of 2 is already demanding enough in this environment. So it's kind of constraining the design of what you would expect them to do to begin with. And I think that seems to me, right now we're all here, we're many, and it becomes a little hectic already, but we are already here in the task that has been more or less defined in a moment where we're all here anyway. But imagine having to coordinate outside and on in the space of a week or 2 or 3 weeks. There is way too much, room for miscoordination going on if you ask them to be any more than 2 in a group, if this is meant to be a group work.
Yeah,
so that would be my first reflection. Keep it simple, keep it, easy, and don't flood them with 1,000 of resources that they're going to be distracting them from the task. I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of simplicity, especially in an online environment, is paramount. I think. Instead of just adding all sorts of things, it's so easy to add content and links and whatever. It becomes a lot of noise, and it goes away, and we haven't even started thinking what is the purpose of this all, right? So always bring it back to what is that we are trying to achieve here in the simplest form, where they learn something out of this. Do we want them to socialize for the sake of socialization, or do we want them to learn from each other? How is that best achieved? So these are all questions that I would be asking to myself when I was designing this assessment, before even thinking about, okay, how do I reach this goal the best, right? I mean, here comes the theories, thinking about design, but I think that's the most important aspect to me, at least. Yeah, sorry. So we could, for the sake of the exercise, we could say, okay, let's imagine we would like them to work in a group. It's a group project, fine. Do we want the group to be a particular site, 2, 3, whatever? And do they have different roles within the group? If this group of 2 or 3, is this a one video that is for the group? Are they having different tasks within that video? What is how that can be organized? And then you start thinking about the design that fits the purpose of what the product that you want to have delivered is going to be, rather. Because otherwise all these things were completely unrelated to what the object of the assessment was all about. And I think one should not lose sight of that. That's at least how I see it.
So I don't know. I don't know. I have the feeling it's pretty clear we want to have a video in the end. And I do take your point that we don't want to have too many people, and then it gets a bit too difficult if we have many people. I don't know where the limit is. I agree with you that 2 is a nice number, but may not be enough in terms of skills to really produce this video. But actually, I am very much for letting these people then, like, giving them the ideal space so that they know each other and trust each other and can say what they can do and what they can't do, but give them a lot of space to use this themselves. And then just look at the results. So I don't want to interfere. I wouldn't want to interfere and say, like, look, you have to have an Excel responsibility also, a person, right? So, I mean, I would maybe go so far to say it is good if there's one person who's kind of making sure that everyone is okay and there's no quarreling or whatever, right? So someone who's looking at what this group is doing and maybe moderating conflicts and so on, because that may happen. But I'm not sure I would go, apart from that role, introduce any other roles in this.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting introducing a role. I was talking about the final content. The video is, if it has to have different sections, different parts, how it should be structured, some kind of direction as to what a good video would look like and how to organize that. Who does what and how they organize that, that's entirely decentralized then at that point. Because it's good to keep creativity for the group. So I wasn't talking about assigning tasks to individuals or be prescriptive in any way. But I think it's important to think about the object of what is the object of this. The final goal is to produce the video, and what should the video have? What characteristics a video should have? What do we want that video to focus on? Is it important for a particular aspect that then you're going to go deeper into, or do you want to have a review or just showcase techniques? Different people will try to use this as an opportunity to show maybe the one that are very good with their econometrics techniques, statistical techniques, to maybe do more techie stuff, right? And others. So depending on the composition of the group that comes about, there might be different ways of producing a good video, which could have different facets to it, different ways. And so maybe producing alternative
so what you're
samples
saying,
of that.
You're saying that kind of the project is not fully enough described in some sense, in the sense that we don't have anything for the student. As if I were a student in a situation, I don't know quite what I'm going to be assessed on. I mean, I know there are people who are going to watch my video, but there's no like no rubric. There's no rubric that says.
So what I'm trying to say is that there was a lot of jumping in to say, oh, get them organized to meet and do whatever else, but we haven't talked about the product that they need to come up with. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing that they need to understand to begin with, and now they're going to be also graded over before anything else gets organized around that. So we already kind of, you jump ahead, but you haven't quite defined the object.
We see where
that makes a lot of sense. I think the way I started thinking about it was very abstract, in the sense that when I said, there's the first thing is going to be a small video by the instructor that says it's a kickoff meeting and says the logistics and the expectations. To me, that was like, that's what's going to define it for the students. And in my mind, what I was thinking is that we can design this class kind of timeline, work timeline, abstracting from the object, in the sense that we're not going to see it anyways. We're just doing an exercise for 10 minutes. That in my mind, that was assumed in the kickoff video should end the first probably Q&A that arises from the students seeing that video, seeing the Excel spreadsheet with the data. All of those questions should have been answered kind of at the beginning. Personally, in this exercise, I don't think I need to think about what video I want to see. I think that the hypothetical instructor will have decided that they want a video that has, a methodology section, a results section, maybe a key preview of finding at the beginning or something like that. But I was totally abstracting from that.
But of course, I can understand where Simona's coming from. If you don't know this, it's very difficult to design the learning, whatever opportunities, if you don't know where you're going. So
I like to know what I'm after before I define how I get Simona, there.
You get the job to write a rubric for this video, right? So I give you some idea, like initially, but it's clear we would need that, but we cannot do that. I mean, that will take at least an hour to come up with a rubric that makes sense to
I guess then one question is like, how do students interact? Because I guess there is the interaction and collaboration on the data side, the kind of data analysis, and then on producing the output. And I think both of that in the past, the data work happened in workshops, in class sessions where we would be there, and then they would film it outside. They would just meet up and think about how to do it. So I guess that's another challenge we have.
And during the data time, it's a bit more complicated because they probably do need more input from us, right? The camera stuff and so on, maybe they can figure out, but if they're analyzing something and they say, oh, we're using this test, and somebody else says, no, but we should use these tests, and they have some conflict in the group, we may want to go there and help them out. And so that's a challenge, of course, online, right? Especially if there's many of these groups. How can we help them?
Just to warn you, everyone else is going to be coming back in 40 seconds.
Okay.
I think before...
It was nice working with you. That's what I can still say.
Challenging. We know how students feel now, very much so, on the receiving end.
That's the idea.
But I think for the climate attitudes thing, one thing I would have asked the student to think about, to tackle a particular research question that they would like to then tackle with the statistical methods using the data, because to personalize. I think that's important, to give them their creativity space, the opportunity to come up with an angle that then they're going to tackle. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, hopefully everyone's back. I think as expected, and you should expect this to happen with your students, lots of people leave when you start asking them to do some work, which I don't quite know. Hopefully in the classroom, if they know that you can see that they've left and that they have some reputation with you. But at UCL, we may be having sort of 700, 800 first years. So I'm not sure we'll mind if they all leave at some point.
Maybe what you should do is about 2% of the marks are based on attendance, something like that. Implicitly, maybe it is difficult to do
Yeah,
formally.
certainly I think if they have to produce an output and there's something, you know, evidence that they've contributed to the output, it will be useful. Alvin, I hope, is back as well, because I did lose him a few times.
Get back. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my Zoom. I kept getting kicked out, but that's just what happens with technology, I guess.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note is I was the host, and I made Alvin the host by accident instead of the co-host, and I lost all access to all breakout rooms. So I mean, this is a really good example, and you've all got to experience what it's like as a student. You know, the lack of clear instructions, going suddenly into technology you've never seen before. Hopefully that's taught you quite a lot about just how important things are. I think I was in one room and explaining that I probably wouldn't use this technology in a breakout room first. I would do something offline with them so they got time to learn how to use the technology themselves, and then they could use something in a breakout room. So I guess this is a time for questions. We've got about 10 minutes. How do you do online assessment with 700 students? Good question. So we will have 2 multiple choice quiz tests, one at the end of term 1 and one at the end of term 2. So they will mark themselves, but we'll have to have question banks and vary the question by students and things like that. We're also going to use a writing task that they always did, and we're going to assess it so they have an incentive to participate during the term on that. So, and then there's going to be coursework in what's called our term 3, so the summer term. So there's just going to be a lot of marking. The first year course, there is 4 of us on it. So we will be able to share that marking, but obviously we're going to try and get more people involved with the marking. But we're focusing mainly on what assessments do we need to keep them engaged, so that you know, they keep on top of their term 1 work as they're going along. But it will be interesting. So we have to basically, it used to be MCQ and a closed book exam, so we're looking at the closed book exam questions and how to redesign them so that they're harder to collaborate on, and mixing up the questions so not every student gets the same question and things like that. But I'm new to the course because one of the people here decided not to teach it anymore. But some of the people, so it's based on core, so there's quite a lot of resources out there and more being created every minute, I think. So a question from Peter about how to get the best out of your TAs. Anyone want to comment on that? How they think they're going to make the most of their TAs and how to help them teach online?
So Sampri might want to come in on that, but just a quick point on that. I mean, I think you know, we're finding certainly that doing things with TAs together, often with online, there's so much going on. There's a chat, and you know, there's things to look at on screens, and it's quite hard to manage everything, technological problems on your own. And we've got a team of us, but having, you know, having TAs moderating at the same time as you're presenting something just works really well for us. But Sampri, did you have any thoughts on that?
So yes, exactly. I agree with Alvin on this. That so as I also mentioned in my presentation, that technical issues are very important in my experience. Student experience that in the beginning of the course, so they will ask you a lot of questions regarding this. So you might wanna not only be very familiar with the tools that are especially for TAs and instructors, but there are many features of the program which are only for students, which you will never see, but students might face problems. So you want to, like in principle, get familiarized with the things which students have to use. so that you in the end are able to answer question if it is like a synchronous session, like so that they don't, you know, like miss the main stuff, which is the course material. And again, like in the beginning of the course, like 2-3 sessions, also it depends, like in my experience, if it is a first year undergrad student who has never done this, like coming from the high school, you might want to spend more time. And if it is like a last year's undergrad student who has experienced this a lot, then you may need to spend less time. So again, like depending upon the exposure of the student and also the exposure of the program, the time you want to spend and the effort you want to put, it will vary a lot. So you want to optimize it. That's what I think. Thank you. Back to Alvin.
So Ralph, you mentioned helping them get involved with the discussion board. Do you need to help them know how to do that, or do you find that they know how to do it already?
Yeah, of course. No, of course I would tell them, and I tell them how I want them to respond, because there are very different ways how you may want to run a discussion board. Like you need to tell them, do I want you to answer questions immediately? Do I just want you to encourage students to help each other? So that needs to be clear communication to TAs, what sort of role they should take on the discussion board. I also tell them to, you know, don't spend, because you can get sucked into discussion boards if they work well very easily. So I tell them, you know, just set aside 2 hours a week on particular days to go on the discussion board. Don't be there constantly. But my experience is that having the TAs help you just basically mop up little issues on discussion boards it's a huge help.
Yeah, I think the idea of working in teams as well is a good idea. So if you are a large course with multiple teaching assistants, then them working with each other. So my sense is, in the past, you know, an experienced teaching assistant probably could walk into the classroom and present the answers to a problem set and leave again, whereas they may need to be engaged with the course in a more full way than in the past. So they might, you know, they'll be at the lectures, and then you need to think about how you're managing their workload. But it may be that this year having them help with discussion forums and in the chat in a live session might actually be more valuable than then spending loads of time marking, for example. So that's one of the things we're working out at UCL. Because actually one of them recording the answers to a problem set and that just being available, and then using their time for other purposes may be useful. But they will need quite a lot of hand-holding, I think, as everybody does.
Yeah, and I just second that point. I mean, I think it's very easy to underestimate the amount of participation that tutors and teachers need to have in the online environment to get students working together and motivate them. Just being part of those groups. I mean, we found that even just now, going into the various groups, you know, unfamiliar tools, people not quite sure how things work, and just being there in those groups, certainly in the early stages, is the kind of key to getting those up and running, I think.
So I'm quite conscious of time. The final thing we just wanted to ask you to do, and you don't have to do it here, it'll stay open, is in the chat I've put a link to a Mentimeter poll. So as Marco mentioned at the beginning, we are a new education committee, and we want to try and help people as much as we can within the limited resources that we have. So the Mentimeter poll is just asking you what you would like from the education committee going forward. The EEA is revamping their website, so we will have a new area, and the first thing that will go on there will be the outputs and the slides from this session, and probably like a short write-up of the discussion. But after that, we'd welcome ideas on what we can do. Obviously, the number of people who've staged the course, and thank you all for staying the course, in the room has reduced, so do feel free to share that Mentimeter with any of your colleagues, anyone else you know who's in the EEA. We're going to keep it open for a couple of weeks, so that, and we'll be sharing it on social media and stuff.
Okay, and so I strongly advise everyone to look at that link I've just sent. It's Gloria Gaynor's Will Survive, made relevant for online teaching.
Yes, it's quite entertaining, although I was singing it in my head for the rest of the night after I watched it the other day.
I was almost going to say we are the one that survived the session, the survivors.
Yeah, I think
the odd ones. That's 24 now.
Congratulations! Yeah,
you're all getting an A star from me,
yeah.
or a 9.
Where's the badge?
I will work out some algorithm in order to give you all some
Oh,
mark.
no. I prefer the direct.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, can I just reiterate what Clodagh said? So we're kind of very open to suggestions for what we can do as an EEA teaching committee to kind of make the sort of teaching discussions more vibrant across Europe. So anything you have to add, that would be really useful. I know, Peter, you've been involved in this committee in the past, but you know, if anyone has any suggestions, that would be really good.
And again, thank you all for staying the course. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, I'm going to close the rooms, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for everything.
And share the Mentimeter link on whatever social media you use and stuff as well. Let's see if we can get more responses.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye everybody. Thank you.
And thank you, Sandeep, for joining us in this.
Yeah, no, it was really insightful. Thank you.